Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Sir Hunt on X on this Tuesday, September 16th of the calendar year 2025. Hope everyone had themselves a wonderful day today. Still that somber feeling after this what took place Sunday over here in Cincinnati with regards to the injury. I will touch on that here in a bit. Also, for everyone who bragged about the fake super fight Saturday night in Las Vegas, I'm going to introduce you to a real super fight that took place 44 years ago. That neither of the two guys Saturday night could carry the jock straps of the guys that fought 44 years ago today. I'm going to touch on that here in a minute. Hope everyone had themselves a wonderful day today. First 2 weeks of the NFL in the books. Now we're going to head into week 3. But before that, we're going to recap what took place last night. It was, of course, the game-winning drive by Tampa Bay over Houston. And you talk about, once again, we're talking about the second straight week where basically the Houston Texans are offensively challenged, and we talk about not having a receiver outside of Nico Collins, and the offensive line, once again, just got beat up. And the same situation that took place last year with Houston, and it happened again this last night. Now, the defense basically did all they could to slow down the Baker Mayfield offense, which we know is as good as anyone in the NFL. But when you talk about what took place last night with the Texans and the Buccaneers on the Houston side, the offensive line was just absolutely abysmal. Once again, and the offense couldn't even barely move. I mean, the only positive sign was Nick Chubb looked like he's starting to get back into form with a long touchdown run. But that was basically the Houston's offense. When we talk about Tampa Bay, I said all along, one of the dark horses in the NFC. The communication level between Baker Mayfield and his receivers, Mike Evans, and now Ubeka. And it basically is just a hand and glove fit. And that's why they was able to drive down the field. Of course, a game-winning touchdown by Bucky Irving. Tampa Bay now 2-0. And we talk about Baker Mayfield and what nearly was of him before what has taken place over the last couple of years in Tampa. I mean, he was a fixture in Cleveland, and we talk about what the year Cleveland had when they went to the divisional round losing to Kansas City. Looked like they finally found their quarterback, but we know what happened after that. They went all in to get the corpse of Deshaun Watson, who quit in the 2019 divisional game at Kansas City himself, and didn't sit well with Baker Mayfield, and as a result, Cleveland sent him to Carolina. It looked like his career was in mud. He went to L.A. for a brief stint with head coach Sean McVay. Got a slim chance here in Tampa Bay, and as a result, he basically made the most of what was likely going to be a final opportunity here in Tampa, and as a result, he has taken off, and it's basically just been the perfect fit for what's going on over there in Tampa, because they even had a quarterback the year after Tom Brady retired, and after going through a couple of quarterbacks, they bring in Baker Mayfield. I think it's going to be just a one-year wonder. You talk about a career resurrection. Baker Mayfield's ascended to probably a top 12 quarterback in the National Football League. What he's done over there in Tampa. I mean, with Mike Evans, you're going to get Chris Godwin back at some point. And now you have Emeka Egbuka, and of course, an underrated tight end, and Cade Otton. That offensive line is stout. Baker Mayfield is showing the world why Cleveland made the mistake what they did to get Deshaun Watson and send him out the door. And Browns fans wanted this guy out the door so bad, they forget about the details and the baggage that came with Deshaun Watson. We all know that. But Baker Mayfield is just living a new life in Tampa right now. They're rolling 3 straight, probably be a 3rd straight playoff appearance under his watch, and they're probably going to win that division, the NFC South, simply because you're talking about the premier quarterback of that division. I mean, granted, the division's not all that great. We talk about Atlanta, Carolina, and the Saints. But the thing with him now is, can he take that team to greater heights? And that offense can be as good as any offense in the entire National Football League. And we talk about the grit, the determination of Baker Mayfield on that game-winning drive that beat Houston last night on the road. And to be fair, in the first 2 games so far against Atlanta and Houston, Tampa Bay hasn't looked superly stellar. But they're 2-0, and you have a Baker Mayfield who's had a resurrection and has just taken off since he's got a chance in Tampa Bay. He was rewarded nicely a couple years ago with a nice contract, and he basically just moved on with it, moved forward, and you can probably see the top 12, the top 15 quarterback in the NFL with his play, and he's just absolutely as good as anyone, at least in the NFC. You can probably say up there in the NFL. I'll probably say at least the NFC because, all the top quarterbacks are more AFC dominant. But Baker Mayfield is as good as anyone. In the long run, I said this all along, Cleveland's and the Cleveland fans are going to vehemently regret shipping this guy out the door for the corpse of Deshaun Watson. And we know what happened with the Watson saga since they got him. And look what happened with the Baker Mayfield saga in Tampa Bay. Two different parallel directions. Cleveland fans, you made your bed. Now go ahead and lie in it, because right now Baker Mayfield's owning you guys, and he's going to own a lot of other people moving forward. Those who criticized him in the past are probably eating their words, because Baker Mayfield is just as good as any quarterback right now in the NFL. Probably top 12, the top 15 are out there. Some people want to put him in the top 10. I don't know the criteria, but I'm just giving you the range. But it's certainly ascended to one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. And you guys in Cleveland, let's just say you haven't done anything of significance since you let him go. I mean, you called Joe Flacco off the couch in 2023 to get you to the playoffs. But look what happened in that playoff game in Houston, where Flacco just basically bottomed out. But Baker Mayfield got you the playoff win in Pittsburgh in 2020. And ever since you guys in Cleveland ran him out, and you still haven't given the reason why you wanted him out, you haven't been relevant since. And Baker Mayfield has ascended to a pretty darn good quarterback. Right now, you guys in Northeastern Ohio are getting your karma, and you're getting exactly what you deserve. You made your bed. Now shut your mouths, go lie in it. And for Baker Mayfield, just keep rolling, because right now, you are rolling. Stories like that is one of the best things in the NFL. We talk about all the top quarterbacks all the time. Maybe we should spend some time talking about guys like this, because he looked like he was on his last leg in the NFL after he was let go by Carolina and went to that year in L.A. And I don't remember what he did much in L.A. aside win a Christmas Day game against the Broncos, who just fell off the map at that point. But he rebounded through the roof in Tampa. They brought him back for after the retirement of Tom Brady. And from that point forward, it's been absolutely smooth sailing for him. And, of course, the other night game took place in Las Vegas. It was the Chargers over the Raiders. Justin Herbert showed why he's a top 6 quarterback in the really now you can say top 4 quarterback in the National Football League with Mahomes, Jackson, and Allen. And put on a solid performance. Geno Smith was an embarrassment. What do you say? First pass was an interception. Last pass of the half was an interception. And, of course, the throws the ball out of bounds on a 4th down play where he was getting pressured, where he forgot he was 4th down. He just threw the ball away. Stopgap quarterbacks. Here's the thing about stopgap quarterbacks. When it comes to situational football and you have a stopgap quarterback and you're trying to win a game that involves situational football, good luck. That's what happened last night with Geno Smith. That's been the story of the career of Geno Smith. Solid quarterback. He's going to win you some games. But when you want him to do more, you're not going to get more out of him. When it comes to situational football, you saw what happened, what Geno Smith was made of last night. And I know the Raiders wanted a quarterback. I get it. They needed someone for the short term. Smith's probably going to be good for about a year or two, tops, if that. And we talk about stopgap quarterbacks in the NFL. Here's the thing about stopgap quarterbacks. They're not good enough to get you to tank. Let me back up. I apologize. They're good enough to where you can't tank, but they're not good enough to get you over the hump, a playoffs or a playoff run. And that's what a quarterback like Geno Smith is, and that's what is going on over there in Oakland, Las Vegas, when you think about it. Because stopgap quarterbacks are good for 1 or 2 year runs at the most. I mean, we're going to get out of them out of 1 or 2 years, unless you have one of those all-in rosters that's guaranteed to get you a deep playoff run, at least a conference championship game appearance. It's not really worth it. I mean, I get what Las Vegas is trying to do. They need a quarterback for within the next year or two. They're going to probably need a full-time quarterback. I get it. And I get Smith's familiar with Pete Carroll, who was celebrating a birthday last night. But we talk about a stopgap quarterback for a 2 to 3 year period. The question is going to be, are you getting a stopgap quarterback to actually do something, or are you just getting a stopgap quarterback just for the sake of having a quarterback under center? Because that's what's going on. They're not good enough to get you to a deep run or a Super Bowl run unless you have one of those all-in rosters. I can almost guarantee it. But they're not bad enough to get you to, quote, tank games for a higher pick, end quote. That's the thing about stopgap quarterbacks. Not a slight on Geno Smith, who's a pretty good quarterback and had some good years in Seattle under Pete Carroll. I mean, good, solid years. But I mean, this is who he is at this point. Just not bad enough for them to tank, but also not good enough to get you to where you need to get to. And those stopgap quarterbacks, it's one of those head scratchers across the NFL. And it's not a slight on these guys. They're looking for a job and a payday. I get it. But it depends on the goals of the team. Now we talk about a stopgap quarterback in Geno Smith. Let's flip it to the other side. Justin Herbert. He's 2-0. So far, first 2 games, he's played about as good as you can play for his expectations. But nothing matters except when he gets to the playoffs and gets the job done. Because last year, remember what happened in that playoff game in Houston where he was just embarrassingly bad? That's what it's going to come down to. Can he get over the hump? And that's all it is for him at this point. I mean, a top 4 quarterback with Mahomes, Allen, and Lamar Jackson, no brainer. He's up there. But now can you get over the hump and actually do something in the postseason? Because the Chargers made the investment for him to be their guy moving forward. But after that playoff performance last year in Houston, nothing matters for him, and nothing should matter for him until something is done in the postseason. Because that's what it comes down to right now. Because, if you're going to put him in that top 4 conversation, you better start showing some results. That's what it comes down to over there in L.A. A franchise quarterback, that's no doubt. I mean, it's as good as anyone. He's going to be forever linked to the guys in 2020, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert. Let me back up here. He'll be forever linked to 2020, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, and Tua Tagovailoa. But for one thing Burrow and Hurts have are deeper playoff runs. Now it's his turn to show the world he can have a deeper playoff run like those two had. Because those two have had Super Bowl appearances. In the case of Hurts, a Super Bowl win last season. Justin Herbert can be as good as both of them. We're going to find out this season if he can get there. Because that's what it's all about, especially when we consider how last season ended in Houston. And speaking of the class of the 2020 season, we know what happened Sunday with the injury to Joe Burrow. And, of course, today it was officially announced he's on IR. They say 3 months. I'll be surprised if he comes back. Because you're talking about turf toe with torn ligaments. I mean, a turf toe, if he had a grade 2 turf toe, they say roughly 8 weeks. But a grade 3 turf toe, they say 3 months. And that's actually being optimistic. Because all the real medical people, or whatever the heck you want to call them, say it's in the 6 to 12 month range. But once again, it's something I've said, and I've been consistent with it, and I'm not backing down because this is where my heart takes over. And my brain with it. Because some people think I'm dumb. You have another thing coming. This is a byproduct of what's happened to the team to the last 4 years. And the blame goes solely to the Bengals fans. The blame goes solely to the Cincinnati podcasters and the Bengals podcasters. And the blame goes solely to the entire Cincinnati media. That's where all the blame should be going on. Here's why. For all this time, you were so sick-headed obsessed, and I mean sick-headed obsessed, with wanting Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins, and Trey Hendrickson paid the top dollar to show the whole world you're not a, quote, cheap organization, end quote. You force a narrative down everybody's throats. You force a narrative on social media platforms, and I mean forced. The key word being forced. Worse than a rapist. It was forced down people's throats because you had this need to put these guys on pedestals they have no business being on. Let's start with that. While all that was going on, you've willfully and intentionally failed to see the details. And the details were, and this is rather easy. You had a quarterback that was sacked the most times during the first year, the Super Bowl run. I think he was sacked like 56 times. The next year, we talk about the AFC title game loss to Kansas City. You were sacked 3 times in the first 5 possessions. You signed Orlando Brown Jr. to a contract he had no business getting. And you guys act like Orlando Brown Jr. was going to be the second coming of Anthony Munoz. Orlando Brown Jr. led the league in quarterback pressures and was the one that got Joe Burrow hurt in that Sunday night game of Baltimore because he got burnt by Jadeveon Clowney. We know that. And when you talk about being unable to protect that investment willfully and deliberately, the way the Bengals fans and the Cincinnati media refused to call out, and they refused to call that out, and they waited till what happened Sunday to finally call it out, it's a red flag, and it speaks volumes to what's going on over here. And it is quite bad. Because we're in year 6, and it's the 3rd time in the last 6 years the guy's going to have some form of surgery done. We have in 2020 the ACL, 2023 the wrist, and now this. Common denominator, somebody missed an assignment that got your quarterback hurt, and nobody in Cincinnati, when it comes to the Bengals fans and the Cincinnati media, wants to bring it up. Nobody wants to mention it. And now because of it, the guy's on IR, more than likely done for the season. I mean, I hope he comes back. I hope he comes back. Everybody's saying 3 months. I doubt it. It's more likely going to be 6 months. We talk about torn ligaments. If he's going to have surgery, unless the guy's the fastest healer on God's green earth, he's not coming back this season. You might as well forget it. Now, moving forward to the rest of the season and what's going to come up starting this Sunday at Minnesota, everyone needs to just get on the Jake Browning bandwagon and just enjoy it. Because you're going to get the good, the bad, the pretty, and the ugly. And that's you're going to get the rest of the way. Look, no one's going to say Jake Browning's the second coming of Dan Marino or Joe Montana. No one's saying that. But he's better than quite a few of these starting quarterbacks we have in the National Football League. And I think you're going to flirt with another 9, 8, 10, and 7 season. And as a result, that's what you're going to get. And probably not in that range. 10 might be a push at the moment. Probably 9 and 8. Whether it's good enough to make the playoffs in the AFC, who knows? Because last year, 9 and 8 wasn't good enough to make it. Because all 7 teams that made the playoffs had at least 10 wins. And it's probably going to be the same this season. But enjoy the ride. Right on the back of Jake Browning. Uplift him. Push him. Get him over the top. Because now that's what it's about. Getting Jake Browning uplifted. Getting Jake Browning going. Because he did it in 2023. 4-3 record as a starter. Even a couple losses, he held his own the best he could. But because Orlando Brown Jr. is a left tackle, he couldn't get the job done. But back him. Support him. Because right now, that's what we got. I mean, they brought a couple quarterbacks to the practice squad. I do like Mike White on there. Remember what he did to us in 2021. But back Jake Browning. If the team loves him, then that means everybody in Cincinnati should love him. A lot of you guys have fallen off the cliff. We heard about Jake Browning's start. I mean, you guys walked out on Jake Browning during the game Sunday in Jacksonville. Actually, if you guys want to walk out, don't ever come back to a game again because you guys are just freaking morons. But back Jake Browning. Support Jake Browning. Believe in Jake Browning. Because it's his time. I mean, the opportunity is there. Granted, under unfortunate circumstances, we don't want it to happen like this. But you're going to get the chance. Some people want to see what you can do with the entire season. They're going to make the game simple for him to put him in position to succeed. Whether it means wins or losses, there's a lot of factors to take in consideration. But back Jake Browning and support Jake Browning. Because if you're not, you might as well find another team and get the hell out of Cincinnati because you don't belong. Never thought I'd have to live the day to say something like that for a backup quarterback. But you saw what he did in 2023. If you guys don't want to believe in Jake Browning, then you're the problem, not Jake Browning. So that concludes the NFL segment. by the way, get well soon, Joe Burrow. I mean, we'd like to see you back, but don't rush it because you've been beaten up enough. I mean, you're approaching Andrew Luck territory if you're not there already. But just take your time to come back, be fully healthy, and hopefully everyone in the Cincinnati community can call out the right things. Because over the last 4 years, the Bengals community has called out the wrong things, and that's why what took place Sunday took place. Joe Burrow deserves much better. The Bengals fans of the Cincinnati media got what they deserved. And I will stick by that. Cold statement, fine with me. But how you guys carry yourselves over the last 4 years, what happened Sunday was the epitome of how you guys carry yourselves. The players deserve better, and it's time for the Bengals fans and the Cincinnati media to start carrying themselves better, period. That'll conclude my NFL segment. Now to the historical aspect today, and on this day, and everyone wants to talk about the fake super fight that took place in Las Vegas Saturday night, because that was a fake super fight. Let me introduce you to a real super fight. And this one is the definition of a super fight in a super golden era at its apex. It was billed as the showdown in the first of the two encounters between the two elite welterweights of that time, Sugar Ray Leonard and the Motor City Cobra Thomas Hearns. Quick trivia for some of you guys that in the fight game, before he was known as a hitman, Thomas Hearns was known as a Motor City Cobra, especially going into this fight. We don't get parallels with two fighters on the come up the way we do with these two on this particular time period. I mean, one went on to win the gold medal, which was Ray Leonard in 1976 in Montreal. Hearns had a distinguished amateur career, lost to Aaron Pryor, who was deemed as a political favorite. And when they both turned pro, seemed like the career started to parallel. But Leonard grew faster because Angelo Dundee, his trainer, matched him with some of the best fighters because he knew the talent he had. And when he beat Wilfredo Gomez in November 30th, 1979 in Las Vegas, he hit the apex. And while he hit that distinction of the best welterweight in the world, while that's going on the come up was none other than Thomas Hearns. And as he was coming up, he was just blasting guys out with that perfectly placed right cross, left and right. I mean, guys were, one right cross, party was over, turn out the lights. I mean, he was everything Detroit, Michigan, at a time when the economics in Detroit were not that great. Whenever you thought of Detroit, Michigan at the time, sports, politics, entertainment, whatever, you always thought Thomas Hearns. That's the impact Thomas Hearns had on Detroit. And as he was coming up, the buzz started. When are we going to get Thomas Hearns versus Sugar Ray Leonard? I mean, the name Thomas Hearns was just all over the television sets. But in the middle of all of that, June 25th, 1980 happened. And that was Sugar Ray Leonard versus Roberto Duran, the first fight in Montreal. We know the story of that one. Roberto Duran taunting Ray Leonard and his wife to get into Ray Leonard's head. And by his own admission, Ray Leonard said, Duran got to me, fought his fight, and lost his welterweight title. But 5 months later in New Orleans, Ray Leonard got his revenge when he made Roberto Duran say no mas to regain the welterweight title. But after that fight, it was revealed that Thomas Hearns, who was in the stance, threw a chicken at Sugar Ray Leonard as a way to call him chicken. Ray Leonard saw it. And now the real buildup started to begin. As after, in the middle of the two fights with Leonard and Duran, Tommy Hearns beat Pepino Cuevas, and I mean, pounded him. The one right cross where Pepino Cuevas spun like a top and melted and did the Ric Flair flop. I mean, you want to see the Ric Flair flop? Pepino Cuevas did the Ric Flair flop when Thomas Hearns hit him with the right cross. That's the Ric Flair flop. And he became the welterweight champ. And now the buildup was just through the roof. As Angelo Dundee said, when we talk about this matchup, we need to let it cook and let it marinate a little bit. So when the fight comes, it'll really start to hype and really start to get the dollars. The last step took place 3 months before at the Astrodome in Houston, where Sugar Ray Leonard beat Ayub Kaluli to win the super welterweight title, and Thomas Hearns blasted out a journeyman named Pablo Baez in 4 rounds to retain his welterweight title. And now we had the setup, and the fight finally took place. the night of September 16th, 1981, the date that will always resonate throughout the boxing landscape. The real, genuine, classic super fight. Again, not the fake one that took place Saturday night in Vegas. The real one. It was 44 years ago today. Sugar Ray Leonard versus Thomas Hearns. Champion versus champion. Put the two belts together. Winner takes all. You're going to have the one champion. And we talk about fights that have ebbs and flows, twists and turns, momentum shifts all over the place. That's what we had with this one. It looked like for a minute when the fight started, the imposing figure of Thomas Hearns, who was a 6'1" welterweight with that long 80-plus inch reach, was just going to outbox Sugar Ray Leonard and had the fight under control because he was peppering Leonard with that left jab. And as the fight was going on in the early rounds, it looked like Leonard's eye was starting to swell quick because Thomas Hearns was doing anything and everything he could to keep Leonard at the end of his reach. And for the first 6 rounds, Ray Leonard had no answers. That was going to be a walkover for Thomas Hearns. But Ray Leonard made the adjustment and started to step up the aggression and started to get inside of that reach of Hearns, and he started to take over. And in the round 7, 8, and 9, Leonard starts to step up his activity. Looked like he had the control of the fight. Tommy Hearns started to wear a little bit, and Leonard capitalized and had control and looked like he had the fight under his hands. But here comes a switch. Known for a guy as a come-forward fighter. Now Thomas Hearns switches to a boxer stance, and now Ray Leonard's the one going after Tommy Hearns, and now Ray Leonard's going after Tommy Hearns with one eye. I'll touch on the detached retina here in a second. We talk about the switch from boxer to puncher for both fighters, not just Thomas Hearns, but also Sugar Ray Leonard, because Leonard now became the go-getter. I mean, he had to, because the scorecards, he was starting to get behind on the scorecards, and Thomas Hearns was starting to control the tempo with that left jab, and Leonard was starting to have little success, unable to see. But the late Emanuel Stewart said something very poignant about this fight. Even though Hearns was in control and he was wiping out the scorecards, I mean, he was ahead at least going to the 12th round, like at least 9-3 or somewhere in that ballpark. The late Emanuel Stewart eloquently said, even though you was up on Ray Leonard, you cannot breathe easy because that Leonard rally was going to come. And when it comes, you better embrace yourself. And the poignant moment came between rounds 12 and 13. In between rounds, with his eye swollen shut. I mean, just as bad as Mike Tyson's was against Buster Douglas. That's how bad Sugar Ray Leonard's eye was swollen against Thomas Hearns. Angelo Dundee was one of the greatest catchphrases of all time. Telling the Ray Leonard, you're blowing it, son. You're blowing it. And you slowly whisper says, you go out there, take control. You can take the fight back. Putting a seat in Leonard's head, knowing he needed to get the knockout to the welterweight championship. Because the fight was over at 12 rounds. Thomas Hearns wins a decision because he had the fight pretty much won. So we enter the 13th round, and we talk about turning it up to the next level at the biggest stage of them all. This was what Emanuel Stewart was talking about with Ray Leonard, because he knew Ray Leonard was going to come, and the moment came. The big left hook that put Leonard against. Let me back up. The big left hook by Sugar Ray Leonard that put Thomas Hearns against the ropes and had Hearns on the defensive, and you saw Leonard throw his hands in the air, and the speed that Sugar Ray Leonard was known for in the amateurs showed, because that 15 to 16 punch combination, not even a machine gun could fire that fast, because that was probably one of the fastest combinations we ever saw when you talk about what Sugar Ray Leonard did to Thomas Hearns against the ropes. He was pouring it on. Hearns on the defensive, laying against the ropes. Leonard continues to pour it on, and basically, as he was continuing to pour it on, Hearns hits canvas through the ropes as the 13th round came to an end. And now the momentum is all on Ray Leonard. Hearns does beat the count. Round ends, saves Thomas Hearns because he was starting to wear down, and Leonard was pouring it on and showing the whole world just how great he was. And we fast forward to the 14th round. About a minute in, Leonard continues to pour it on. the double left hook, followed by the right cross that puts Hearns against the ropes again. And the referee stops the contest. And your undisputed welterweight champion of the world is none other than Sugar Ray Leonard. Retains his title, takes Hearns' title, becomes the undisputed welterweight champion. It was probably Leonard's finest hour, because that's what it was. When you talk about big-time performances on big stages, we can point to a lot of athletes who have this. We can point to a lot of people. For that time, no one did it like Sugar Ray Leonard. And this was basically the apex of it. I mean, Thomas Hearns had this fight under control. He rose to the occasion on the big stage. He did. But Sugar Ray Leonard basically buckled down, went to the well, and showed the whole world why he was Sugar Ray Leonard. You can say a lot of things about the flamboyance, the style, and the charisma. But when he wanted to get mean and nasty, Sugar Ray Leonard could get mean and nasty. And when he had to get mean and nasty to Thomas Hearns in that fight in 1981, he got mean, he got nasty, and that was all over for Thomas Hearns. And he had to, because he had the fight lost. And you talk about a fight that was right down the middle, back and forth in terms of betting odds, betting money. But of course, a boatload of people who flew from Detroit to root for Hearns basically bet their life earnings and everything, thinking Thomas Hearns was going to pull it off, and it looked like he was going to. So Angelo Dundee told Ray Leonard, "You're blowing it, son." And the 13th and 14th rounds basically showed why, Sugar Ray Leonard was basically the premier fighter of that generation. Probably arguably his finest hour. So people point to Benitez. Benitez was the coming out party, but the finest hour was what he did 44 years ago today at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas. And these are what we call transcendent super fights. Not the bogus one that we saw Saturday night. Real transcendent super fights between two elite greats on the come up as they're coming up, meeting head on, crossing paths, and two guys who are made for one another. Because you talk about styles make fights. They from boxer to puncher, flip it to boxer to puncher, back forth to back boxer to puncher. So many tides, so many shifts in momentum. This one had it all. I mean, this was a little more than 10 and a half years after the first transcendent super fight, which was Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier at Madison Square Garden, March 8, 1971. It was the same thing. Both guys fought both ways. Both guys shifts in momentum. But when it comes to Sugar Ray Leonard and Thomas Hearns on this particular night, maybe when it comes down to the fact, you could probably say Thomas Hearns was more skilled. I mean, you can debate it. I mean, no one's saying Thomas Hearns was somebody who just came off the streets just ready to throw punches, because you need to be more than just a fighter who just throws punches. Where you're fighting a caliber of a Sugar Ray Leonard, and Thomas Hearns had a deep, deep boxing pedigree. When you talk about the Kronk Gym and Emmanuel Stewart, you would have to be something special to beat that Thomas Hearns that night. And Sugar Ray Leonard was special. He went to the well. And you talk about arguably the greatest welterweight championship fight in boxing history, because of all the momentum shifts, all of the tides that turn, all of the drama, all of the intense moments, edge of your seat moments. That's what this fight had. We haven't seen anything close like it. Maybe few exceptions, but in that weight class, just in the welterweight weight class, arguably the greatest welterweight fight in boxing history. The gold standard for what championship boxing should be. At the peak of the 80s golden era, the Four Kings era with those two, Leonard, Duran, throwing to Larry Holmes, Salvador Sanchez, Wilfredo Gomez. That was what 80s boxing was. And these two, at the peaks of their profession, the pure peaks on the come up, parallel careers, not even, you can probably say neither really hit their peak, but on the come up, paralleled, meeting head on when they're still young, and a fight that had all the goods that you don't even have to do much building up, because when you mentioned Sugar Ray Leonard and Thomas Hearns in 1981, you were juiced to see it. You wanted to see it. That was the buildup for Leonard-Hearns 1. And when that was signed and the fight finally happened, everyone got their money's worth. a boatload of fights before and after. You could probably say that had high billing and surpassed it. Of course, the trilogy of Ollie Frazier, Ollie Foreman, go back to a fight like Sugar Ray Robinson and Jake LaMotta. Maybe after that, Leonard Hagler, obviously, because everyone wanted to see that. It just took forever to happen for whatever reason. Julio Cesar Chavez and Meldrick Taylor the first time, just as transcendent as Leonard-Hearns. The start of the 90s, raised the bar. That fight did. Maybe we go a little more modern. The first Diego Corrales Jose Luis Castillo fight, that had all the goods. We all know that. Some call that the greatest fight ever. Strong case. But when we talk about the night of September 16, 1981, that night in boxing history is owed to always be forever in stone. It will live forever and ever and ever. And it belonged to two guys, Sugar Ray Leonard and Thomas Hearns. Because this was a case of stock up for both fighters. Because, Leonard, of course, buckling down with a detached retina to win the welterweight title. And Thomas Hearns' stock rose as a warrior, even in defeat, because he basically went to the well, did all he could, just ran into a generational great. That was probably the biggest misfortune for Thomas Hearns at a time when he was as great as all of them. I mean, maybe his fortune and misfortune was being in that era, not having that signature win. Maybe you could say Cuevas, or you could say Duran in 84. But being in that middle of the four kings with Leonard and Hearns, Leonard, Hearns, Hagler, and Duran, with other guys like Larry Holmes, Salvador Sanchez in there, and eventually Julio Cesar Chavez, Pernell Whitaker, down the line at the back end of the 80s. Maybe that's his misfortune is coming in at the wrong time, because that guy can fight in any era. We consider the opposing will, the size, the skill, and the ring IQ, and of course that lethal right hand that if he puts you on your chin, you're going to be sleeping for about a week. After Roberto Duran's probably still seeing stars 41 years later after Hearns patient him in 1984. But maybe the biggest misfortune of Thomas Hearns was coming at a time when there were so many great fighters. And if this is a guy who could fight in any era. I mean, a lot of people could say whatever they want. This guy can fight in any era because he had the skill and the pop. Now we talk about, of course, Sugar Ray Leonard after this fight. I mean, the distinction of the undisputed welterweight champion. Of course, all the controversy with the retina. Basically, it was perceived as done. I mean, everybody thought after the eye injury, it was done. Remember, this is 1981. There was no such thing as being able to have any type of correction visual surgery back then. You had a detached retina in boxing, you're finished. I mean, that's what the perception was. He couldn't come back. Of course, we know what happened a year later in that banquet in Baltimore when he invited Marvin Hagler, telling him to his face, fight's never going to happen. So he goes to Worcester, Mass., the backyard of Marvin Hagler, to fight a journeyman named Kevin Howard, who floors Ray Leonard in the middle of the fight, but Leonard comes back to stop Kevin Howard in 9 rounds. And of course, the win over Hagler in 87. And the end game for him was in 1988 when he came from the canvas to just obliterate Donnie Lalonde to win the super middleweight and light heavyweight titles. The fighter of the 80s, I mean, to me, he's not even close. I mean, think about what he did in the 80s. I mean, lost to Duran, got his revenge. I mean, beat Hearns, beat Hagler, beat Lalonde to win all of his world titles. Of course, the second fight against Hearns was what showed probably his last great fight on his way out. So he was the fighter of the 80s. Larry Holmes, an honorable mention. Marvin Hagler, obviously. Depends on what your view is of the Leonard Hagler fight in 1987. Still debated 38 years later. But when you talk about super fights, this is what a super fight is. Not the bogus one that took place Saturday night. This is a super fight. This is a super event, plus a super fight that had high billing, split down the middle odds, and it superseded all expectations and then some. I mean, talk about superseding all expectations. If the expectations was here, it's superseded by finding a way to surpass the sky. That's how high Leonard-Hearns one was in 1981. There's no super fight, maybe before or after, that could come nearly close. I mean, forget about the fake one that took place Saturday night. I mean, that was just an event for the newbies who think that's those two guys belong to the same category as Sugar Ray Robinson. Well, of course, they all need check for CTE. But true, genuine super fights are something like what took place between Sugar Ray Leonard and Thomas Hearns, because this is what everybody wants. Two champions, parallel careers, on the come up, put them together, winner takes all at the ultimate stage. And that's what happened. You're not going to get anything quite like that again, because that's what this was. We talk about some of the greats in that division. Obviously, they're up there. The king of the crop is still Sugar Ray Robinson. Probably throw a few others up there. Henry Armstrong, of course, when he beat Barney Ross to win the title. Of course, Ross is in that conversation. You can probably throw those up there. Pernell Whitaker, know him as a lightweight, had a nice run at welterweight with 9 successful title defenses. He's up there also. Roberto Duran. I mean, when he came up from lightweight to welterweight, remember, he beat Carlos Palomino to get the Leonard fight, and he got it. Of course, we know the story with No Moss. He's up there. Felix Trinidad out of Puerto Rico. Wilfred Benitez, another one. A nice deep crew in the welterweight division, which is one of the originals of the original 8, and a lot of great ones. Hearns is up there. You know, how he just hit Pepino Cuevas so hard, Pepino Cuevas just did the Ric Flair flop. That's to tell you about the power of Thomas Hearns. A great class up there. Real deep in talent. But Robinson's probably number 1, and right behind him, more than likely, Sugar Ray Leonard. Because when you go undisputed in that kind of an era, in the 80s, when going undisputed was the big thing, and when you was the talk of the town, you know you made it in the big leagues. And nobody for that time stepped up at the biggest stages of them all, went to the well, and dug deep the way Sugar Ray Leonard did time after time after time in the 80s. And that's what happened. We talk about this fight that took place 44 years ago, and it was certainly a sensational fight. I mean, there's a lot of ones before and after that may become close, especially in those weight classes, because we know that the sport has a lot of them, but nothing quite like this, because this is what we wanted at the end of the day. The best fighting the best at their best for pride, for legacy. That's what happened 44 years ago today in Las Vegas. Boy, I wish I could find a time capsule and take us all back and relive it, because I would love to have been a part of that 23,000 people who watched that fight at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas. And they called that the fight where legends were made. 44 years ago today, 2 of them were made. Sugar Ray Leonard and the Motor City Cobra Thomas Hearns, forever etched in history. Careers always parallel, always debated who was a better fighter, always debated who had a better career, because, you know, it depends on what you like. I'm not just going to debate it. All I'm going to say is I lived it, and I wish I could live it again. In the midst of all the fake super fights that we had Saturday night in Vegas, doesn't pale in comparison to what we had on that day. And this is what the fight community needs to call out more of, because it's missed out. It's been missed out since the 80s. I mean, we've had, whatever reason, we don't get this anything like that. And the fight community refuses to call it out, and I want to know why. Because we missed out on a lot. Fights past their expiration date, fights that don't take place because of business reasons and contractual reasons, whatever. But when we talk about Leonard-Hearns won, probably the right time, the right opponent, and the right circumstance, both ways. It was just Sugar Ray Leonard, the extra desire, the extra will to dig deep, and knowing he was behind on the scorecards, needed a knockout, go into the extra well, and showing the world why he was probably the fighter of the 80s, more than likely. Fighter of the year in 1979, and just carried it out through the entire decade of the 80s. That's all you need to know about Sugar Ray Leonard. And Thomas Hearns said he did nothing wrong with that fight. He did nothing wrong with that fight. Everybody makes it seem like he did. He didn't. He fought the fight he wanted. He just ran into a guy who just had it. I mean, we can talk about a lot of guys that had it. Sugar Ray Leonard was the it guy for the longest time, and there's nobody we're going to say there was an it guy nearly close to what he was. Just a terrific fighter. Oh, I just wish we could have more fights like that again because it would be more fun to talk about, but we haven't had it in quite some time. We're just stuck with fake super fights like the one Saturday night. What happened? What happened to the sport I love? As one-time NBA commentator Mark Jackson would say. And on that note, this will wrap up this edition of Sir Hunt on X. I will be back tomorrow night. Another revisionist history. A fight that was called Unfinished Business. The business was finished. I'll elaborate on the details. If you missed any part of the show or some of the others, I will be posting this version on the Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, and Spotify apps. For those on the Apple Podcast and iHeart, you can catch it on audio. And on Spotify, if you have our Spotify app on your phone and follow my show, you can catch a video of it also. And as always, make self-care your number one priority in all of life. You take care of yourself first, all the good things will come your way. Always take care of you, and that's the only thing that matters. Because if you don't take care of yourself first, guess what? Nothing else matters. Focus on you, take care of you, stay true to yourself, good things will come your way. That's the story of life. Until tomorrow night, have a good rest of the 16th of September, 2025. I will be back tomorrow night. Good night. Take care. God bless. And enjoy the rest of the night.